work better with sort of question and answers going back and forth. So I'll try and keep my remarks short, but give you a little bit of my background. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I grew up in Chicago, went to Mount Carmel High School, and then was fortunate enough to get recruited to go to Princeton University, which I was this close to not going to. And thanks to my dad, he made sure that I went to Princeton. And I'm here to tell you that it changed my whole life, because neither one of my parents went to college, and being able to go to a place like Princeton helped me get to do all the different things that I've been able to do over my career. So I spent 4 years at Princeton. I was fortunate enough to get drafted by the Philadelphia 76ers back in 1983. So all you young folks probably don't even remember that, but that was the year after the Philadelphia Sixers won the championship with Dr. J, Maurice Cheeks, Moses Malone. I mean, they had a real whip. So I was drafted in the 4th round, and I played the same position as the first round draft pick, Leo Routen. So it was only a matter of time before I got cut, but I went overseas and played a couple of years in England, and came back and started my work life. And it was during my time in England that I thought I was going to be a coach, right? I was fortunate. The coach that I had, but the team I was on was in Manchester, England. The coach, though, that I had was an American who was a huge fan of Pete Carrill, who was my coach at Princeton. And he asked me if I wouldn't mind showing the team some of the Princeton offense. And so I was like, yeah, sure. And I'd coached little kids at camps and things like that, but I never thought that I wanted to be a coach. Well, I start showing the team how the Princeton offense works. I'm showing them backdoor cuts, drive drill, all the kind of stuff that you learn. And we end up going from the 12th place team, 12 out of 12, to finishing 3rd and qualifying for a cup tournament the following year. So I have this light bulb experience where I'm like, that's it. I'm going to be a coach. So I'm flying back to the United States from England, and I'm stopping through Princeton to see Coach Carrill. My sister's there. I went to see her. I thought I'd stop in and see Coach Carrill. So I go in and I see Coach, and I say, Coach, I figured out what I want to do. I want to be a coach. And you know what he said to me? He said, excuse my language, you don't want to be a fucking coach. He said, and he didn't mean this maliciously. He said, look, here you are, a Black kid from the South Side of Chicago with a Princeton degree, and you can't give up the basketball. And I, like the dutiful player that I was, I was stunned, and I was like, oh my God, I must be doing the wrong thing. He said, I'll tell you when you can be a coach. He said, go get a job somewhere, and I'll tell you when you can be a coach. And that's what I did. And I proceeded to go back to Chicago, apply for some jobs. I ended up working on getting a job at a Wall Street firm as a stockbroker, and that began my business career. So for the next 14 years, I was working in corporate America. But deep down in the back of my mind, I was like, I am going to be a coach someday, and I was hoping that I'd be able to make enough money to pay for my house and save for my kids' education. And then my plan was to teach 7th grade and coach high school basketball. And so I'm in this career. I end up going back to business school, and I'm sort of making my way up the corporate ladder. I end up being a partner at a firm in Chicago, and my life is going about as well as it can be until I get a call one morning. I'm on the trading desk now. I was running a trading desk at the time. So you don't really have an office. You're just sitting out in a big floor with a bunch of guys around you. And I get a call on my phone. I pick up my phone, and it's Bill Carmody. And I don't know if you guys know Bill Carmody, coached at Northwestern, coached was an assistant coach at Princeton. Well, he was the assistant at Princeton when I was there. He calls to tell me he's getting the Northwestern job, and he offers me a job as an assistant coach. Now, the only preparation I had was that while I was working, I was coaching youth basketball. I coached a high school team. I coached my kids' teams. So I was coaching, right? And you know, the best advice that I could give anybody who wants to get into coaching. Now, all you guys are already in coaching, but the best advice is, if you want to be a coach, just go coach somewhere, coach anywhere. And that's what I did. And I said, Coach, I'm on the trading floor. Give me 15 minutes and I'll call you back. So I hung up the phone. I got somebody to kind of watch my spot. I went downstairs, got in a taxi, called him back. And in 20 minutes, I had accepted the job as an assistant coach at Northwestern University. Now, the hard part was trying to tell my partners that I was leaving this investment banking gig to go be an assistant coach at Northwestern. And you can imagine guys who are making the kind of money that Wall Street guys make. The guy who ran my firm, who I was partners with, he said, "Hey, Craig, do you mind if I ask you a question? How much do these jobs pay?" He couldn't believe that I was leaving this wonderful and lucrative opportunity to become an assistant basketball coach. And that's how I got into coaching. Not a whole lot of people know that story. So, and that sort of led one thing to another. I was at Northwestern for 6 years. And then I was fortunate enough to get the head coaching job at Brown University. I was there for 2 years. And then I left there to go to Oregon State, and I was there for 6 years. And then when I got fired at Oregon State, I was trying to figure out, should I go? Should I wait? Should I do this? And I ended up having an opportunity to work in broadcasting. So I worked at ESPN for 2 years, which by far, guys, was the easiest work you can do in basketball. If you can ever get it, do that. You're sitting at half court watching really good basketball and talking about it. So, and then after that, that's when I had my stint over the last 5 years. I've been in the NBA before I took this job. And the NBA is just an absolute different kind of animal. And we can get into that if you guys want to talk about that. And so I'm working at my last job was with the New York Knicks, and this job opened up. And after this, I'll open it up for questions, but I wanted to tell you how I ended up in the seat that I'm in now. So I get a call in, January or February of last year. And a friend of mine says, "Hey, Jim Haney's retiring. Would you be interested in that job?" And I said, "Huh." And I thought about it, and I said, I might be. And then I heard that they were trying to get Dan Gavitt, who works for the NCAA, who did a great job in helping us get through this year and having an NCAA tournament. And I said, "Oh, geez, that's perfect. He's perfect for the job." So I didn't think about it again. And then jump ahead to April. April comes around. No one Dan hasn't taken the job. As a matter of fact, he's told them that he's not interested. And I get a call from someone on the board of the NABC asking if I was interested. So I went through the interview process, had a couple of interviews, all by phone, because by then we're in the COVID environment. And then I get offered the job in June, and I start in July, this past July. So that brings me here today. But enough of the me talking. I think this works better when we're going back and forth. So with that, let me, Kevin, if you don't, unless you have anything else you want to hear from me, I say let's open it up for questions.
I couldn't agree with you more. First question, Peter Funk.
Coach Robinson, Peter Funk, Valparaiso University. Thank you for being here with us tonight. I'm a newer NABC member, so I'm excited for your leadership. There's a couple of young coaches on the call tonight. I'd be curious to know what's the best advice you could give to younger coaches.
Oh boy, it's a lot. But when I think about when I was a young coach, and if I knew then what I know now, and I was an older young coach, right? Because I had spent 14 years working in corporate America. There is almost nothing more important, and especially these days and these times, than relationships. And you guys already know this, I'm sure, but not just relationships with coaches, right? I think where we all as coaches shortchange ourselves is with relationships with other people within the university, right? I think it is really important to be able to feel comfortable having discussions with your ADs, with provosts, with presidents, with your alums who are really supportive of both athletics and academics. And you almost want to game plan out situations when you might run into these people and have sort of 2 or 3 things on your mind that you would talk to them about. Because as all of you know, those guys actually want to hear from you. They just don't get an opportunity to. And so one of the best pieces of advice that I got, and I did not get this in corporate America, I got this from another coach, was reach out to the people that you want to develop relationships with on a regular basis, so that when you need something, you don't have to call them up and ask them, and you haven't built that relationship. So I think that is really important. The second thing that I would say is in sort of dealing with people these days, and it's really been exacerbated, or it's been brought to the forefront during this pandemic about how important it is to connect, right? What you guys are doing with this tribe, as Kevin calls it, is really important, because connecting with these younger people who are our players, both men and women, is so important these days. It's more important than the X's and O's. And when I was coming up, knowing your X's and O's was more important. And thanks for being a member, Peter. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That was great.
Next question, Mike Lopez.
Coach Robinson here again. Appreciate you being on. Mike Lopez, Creative Coaching Podcast. My question is based on, lately we've seen a lot of institutions being more concise and more thoughtful about their hirings. And so we've seen a turn for the better in that regard. And so, like myself, being a member of the Latinx community, I'm looking, and I think, I don't want to speak for anybody else on here that's part of the Latino community, but I would say, I'd like your take on whether myself and others like me that are part of our community will see opportunities pop up and be more available to us at either the college level or the NBA pro level, anything like that. I'd sure like your take on that.
Yeah, Mike, I think I think that your first statement was right. Institutions are being more thoughtful and more inclusive, and right now, I think Black coaches of color are getting the benefit of that more than sort of Latinx coaches of color. And to your question on, do I think that that's going to continue? Boy, I sure hope so. And I hope that people will look at all coaches of color, right? I think though, in what I think, just like it was for Black folks early on, there were no role models for people to look to say, hey, I have hired this Black coach. I know he can do the job, so other guys can possibly do the job. There's just not many Latinx coaches, right? And that's a shame, because there are plenty of Latinx players. And I think that, as a matter of fact, I had one in my program at Oregon State, and I just think that just keep doing what you're doing, keep being involved, keep developing relationships, because I think all you have to do is get in that, as you know, you got to get in the pipeline, right? If you get a job as a college assistant, that's going to be that's going to help sort of move you up the ladder. But again, it's if you can show people that you have the ability to connect, and you have you have a way, a high level of emotional intelligence, you know, I think ADs are starting to see those are the kind of people that we need to keep our players around. With this new transfer legislation, connectors are going to be important.
Thank you, Coach. I really do appreciate that.
My pleasure, Mike.
Next question, Lamar Barrett from Unmasked.
Not just Unmasked, but I appreciate it. Coach Robinson, because there's a lot of guys on this call that have been or will be, I mean, we just the nature of the business, that will be let go in coaching. Can you talk about, because I don't think many guys know about the benevolence fund in college, for college coaches who are let go, who are struggling a little bit, they can't get money. Can you talk about the benevolence fund, and also from a receiving and donating standpoint?
Sure. I appreciate the question, Lamar. This is what Lamar is talking about is that, and mind you, I didn't even know about this when I was a member, but through some wonderful coaches who've donated to the NABC Foundation, we have a benevolent fund for coaches who are struggling, and you can apply. If you're a member of the NABC, you can apply for it. You can, all you have to do is fill out the application, state why you need the funds, what your situation is. And if you're a member, then it goes to our committee, who is our benevolent fund committee, and you can receive up to $6,500, I think it is right now. But in order to have that, we ask that when coaches when they do have jobs, that they donate to it. So it's sort of like coaches taking care of other coaches. And for some reason, it has not sort of been publicized or utilized. And one caveat, I'm talking about this, the person who is the chief executive or the executive director of the NABC is also the executive director of the NABC Foundation, but I don't take over that because of some board voting until this fall. And what I hope to do is to grow that fund and also make people more aware that we have it. And we have to do a better job of encouraging coaches to use it, because you guys know how you all are. You're proud and are trying to like make it on your own, which I totally understand, but it's there to be used. And Lamar, I appreciate you talking about it, because I would have never brought that up in this discussion. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Next question, Eric Skeeters.
Oh, Coach Skeeters is here.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm hanging in there, Coach. Hanging in there. And thank you for coming on, because that was actually, Lamar, that was a great question. Unfortunately, I learned about the benevolence fund in my time. But I wanted to ask you about, in this role, and obviously, Coach, you've seen a lot of levels, head coach, assistant coach, the partnership of the NABC and NCAA. In this sport of basketball, I've learned that we are the only sport that can't supplement our income as coaches. So we can't have an opportunity to work with quote unquote club organizations. So the direct, obviously, it's like soccer, lacrosse, track and field, have their club organizations that they work with. If one thing I'd like to see in the rule change, my question is, in your role with the NABC, can we in basketball partner up? Because we know how important men's basketball is to the NCAA as a whole. We've seen that with now having this year's tournament versus not having last year's tournament, and what it's worth to all levels of sport, every sport, and what the men's basketball tournament funds in NCAA. But being an effective partner to where now the rules make sense for men's basketball, and the coaches, I see a lot of young coaches on it, because as a young coach, I did start literally in my 20s. I came right out of college, finishing up my degree, coaching in high school, AAU, and the rec centers, and then was fortunate enough in my hometown to get a job, that was pretty good, but it was a low-level job, and worked my way up the ranks. The partnership of the NABC with NCAA, can you kind of provide some insight on how we can grow and make rules, because it's not like the rules aren't in the book already. Like, we all have our tests, and then we take the test, and it breaks down to, all right, these last 10 questions are for your sport specific. So in men's basketball, we're unable to monitor, for lack of a better word, supplement our incomes. Where when we get let go and things don't work out, it's not like corporate America with a head coach. And I know I'm going, a little bit long with this question, Coach, but when the CEO gets fired, the whole office isn't shut down. Well, in our sport, when the head coach gets fired, everybody's got to look for a job in the next 6 months, because you're getting, your insurance runs out July 1st. So my question is, can you just provide some insight on partnering up with the NCAA and NABC, kind of making some rules, adaptations and changes?
Yeah. Well, Eric, I'll tell you this. If there was a time where we can have discussions like this, now is the time. I think with NIL coming, with the fact that the NCAA is trying to take a homogenous view, so that all the rules apply to all the sports. This might be a time to do it. And I will tell you that one of my strategic goals is, the relationship between the NCAA and the NABC hasn't been that good in the past. So one of my in my strategic plan, I am trying to sort of redefine that relationship so that it's more of a partnership and not adversarial. And certainly, you're the first person to bring this up to me. And I remember that from taking the test back when I had to take the test, that you couldn't do any outside stuff. But the fact that other sports are allowed to do this, there might be an opportunity here for us to fall in more of line with everybody else. There's also the other issue, and I'll argue the other side, that schools are worried about NIL and they're cutting back on people being able to do more as opposed to less. But I think if you're talking about earning money outside of your salary, maybe that's something that institutions will take a look at now that they're trying to pay coaches less.
Well, the reason I say that, it wasn't because of the salary structure, but because of the opportunity to work in your craft with youth organizations. So in soccer and lacrosse, I played lacrosse. I know I don't look like a lacrosse player, but I played lacrosse 4th grade through college. And we were able to, the coaches in Division I are able to work with middle school, high school club teams, and obviously they recruit from them as well. So it's beneficial to their sport. I know AAU gets a bad rap, but it's the same thing. And it's actually beneficial to us in our sport in a lot of ways. But yet they look at it, and, when you go to take the test, they look at, oh, yeah, you guys can't do this. All other sports kind of like wink at us and make fun of us. And so they're making camps, recruiting, and they're able to, supplement their income as well as recruit and excel in the sport. Where we go to events and can't talk to, Josh Pastor couldn't talk to his dad at AAU.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's, I think you make a really good point, and I'm jotting this down right now. And I know I saw Jeremy McCool on here. I don't know if Jeremy has any kind of thoughts on this, but I think it's at least worth a discussion.
Yeah, I'm happy to address that. Coach Skeeters, good to see you.
Hey, Jeremy, how are you doing? Good to see you. I didn't know you were here.
Yeah, no worries. And I'm happy to address the question. I think Craig's initial response is spot on. For any issue, frankly, that the coaching community, the college coaching community specifically, feels is a better direction for their game, is to bring it to the attention of the NABC. The way that our governance structure, way that the ruling process is set up for all of NCAA 1, 2 and 3. 2 and 3 are a little bit different, but specifically for Division I, is through the governance committee structure. And so the NABC has a tremendous platform to present and propose and have rules changes discussed that can get into the legislative process. And so this type of issue, Eric, is a way to how you can bring it to Craig's attention. Craig can bring it to his board's attention. The board can talk about it and bring it to the men's basketball committee. Oversight committee can bring it to the council, and the council can weigh in to see if it's something that is going to be looked at as a kind of membership approved change. And to gather as much support for something like this, I think, we look at college basketball in a way oftentimes as the schools that are the most well-known and the most kind of visible have a lot of advantages because they're well-known and visible. But schools that are smaller are larger in number. And if you were able to get your voice collectively and the issues collectively brought to the table, there's leverage. And to Craig's point as well, right now, this time, in essence, make the rules more universal, is that this is a great time to bring forward some of those things that may have been looked at as where an advantage would be gained just because it's men's basketball, but softball can do it, soccer can do it, swimming can do it, and so forth. There's a some behind some of those things, maybe to just kind of see what happens.
Got it. And thanks, Craig, too, because you being on helps, move the message forward. You haven't.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if my hope is that I'm more out. We are more as an organization out in front on issues and not coming in behind. And let me thank Jeremy, because he didn't have any idea that I was going to call on him there, Jeremy. So thanks for being on, and thanks for jumping in. But that's just a perfect example. When I started, Jeremy reached out. We've gotten to know each other just over the 6 months that I've been here, and I feel very comfortable talking about what we're trying to do to him, because I think our the relationship between the NABC and the NCAA has to be a positive one. So I've taken this down. You've given me a couple of ideas to think through. So thanks a lot, Eric. Really appreciate it.
No, my pleasure, Craig. Thanks for coming on. Thanks, Kev, for letting me ask the question.
Absolutely, Skeets. Absolutely. Next question, JD Powell.
Coach Robinson, first, thank you for being on here tonight with us. If you would, please let your sister know how much I enjoyed her book. It was an outstanding, well-written. I really enjoyed learning about your family. It was well done.
It was all right. It was all right.
Nah, it was pretty good. She loves her brother. I know that. She thinks
Thanks,
he's really
JD.
good at basketball.
I appreciate it.
So question for you tonight. So the first question was from a guy that was a 2-year member of the NABC. As a guy that's been in the NABC for 2 decades, I think a lot of the older coaches would say we've seen the role of the NABC diminish in the last 5 to 10 years. I think a lot of us are excited, with your direction and the energy you can bring. What's 2 or 3 of the things that you like to see immediately the NABC be able to do under your leadership?
Well, first and foremost, and thanks for the question and thanks for the compliment. I'll be sure to tell my sister. She'll love to hear that. Especially when I tell her we were a group of basketball coaches and they were talking about her book. She thinks that she's hot shit now. Excuse my French, but this will really make her day that coaches are reading her book. But one of the main things that I think we have to do as a group, and I mentioned this answering one of the other questions, is we have to get our reputation back to where it was positive. And I look at this group, right? And I always go by the 80-20 rule. And Jeremy's heard me say this, and James Jones has heard me say this, and John Thompson's heard me say this. You got 80 to 85% of the coaches doing what they're supposed to be doing, and you got 15 or 20% who aren't. And we all get painted by the brush of the 20% who aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? And I think part of my role is to turn that back around, where the perception of the 80% is the perception of the group rather than the 20%. So one of the key things that I want to do is restoring trust in the coaching profession. Secondly, as I was just talking about, really rethinking how we work with the NCAA and how we get in front of issues as opposed to coming in behind. What we've tried to do is kind of anticipate issues that are upcoming and be more strategic in how we get our message to the MBOC, the Men's Basketball Oversight Committee, and then to the council who actually votes on it. And just to give you an idea, what we're doing is we've got a Congress, which is a group of one coach from each conference come together. We talk about issues, and rather than just leaving it and having guys just go back and talk to their friends, we're strategically trying to get those coaches go back and talk to the people in their conferences, and have the conferences then talk to their ADs, commissioners, and people who are on the council, so that it's much more of a strategic lift on getting folks on the council and the board of governors to understand where the coaches are really thinking and how they can help. So those are 2 things. And then the third, and I know JD, you'll be glad to hear this, we just want to modernize the NABC. We want to have some modern benefits. We should be helping you guys with education. We should be helping you guys with Coach Skeeter's idea, other income opportunities. At least thinking along those lines where our benefits are more modern and not just tickets and hotel rooms.
Well, I will share this with you as a member of the Assistant Coaches Committee. I've already seen a change in the tone in the last 6 to 8 months since you've taken over, to where our communication is more consistent. Even in our committee meeting today, obviously Ken Dempsey and those guys have done a great job for a long time, but I'm excited about the direction and we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, JD.
JD, great question. All right. Next question, Jermaine Johnson.
Congratulations, Coach, on your tenure, your inauguration into the presidency at the NABC. First of all, I would like to know where, as an organization, we're going, how we're going to get there, and when will we get there?
Well, that's a broad question, and you know, just like I said before, there's some the things that I'm sort of strategically focused on are sort of modernizing the NABC, the relationship with the NCAA, making that so that it's a more positive and more dynamic. The transparency is a must. You know, I'm trying to be as transparent about what we're doing. I'm out in front rather than behind. I think for you coaches who are going to become head coaches, right? I think I feel like I can be a voice for you when you can't really say things, and that's really what a professional association should do. We've started a player development coalition where we can get feedback from student athletes and have their voices heard within the NCAA. I think that's been one of the better things we've done this year, and helped us get some positive benefits from the NCAA for us. Addressing social justice issues, not being afraid to speak out on those. And then, like I said, restoring the reputation of coaches and getting that trust back. And hopefully you're starting to see some of those things happen now, but some of like changing legislation is a hard job to do and a long process. So that won't be as quick, but you'll see some things out that come out of the MBOC that were initiated by the NABC. Working together with the WBCA, that never happened according to the WBCA. They, you know, we have worked closely on our conventions. We both had panels in our convention that we used in both conventions. So, you know, that's something else we're working on. So those are some, your question was broad, so I'm hoping I'm getting to the answer there.
Well, that's a great response. So over the years, I've been in the NABC approximately 8 years.
Okay.
And trying to get more minority teachers, coaches, like a Kevin Sutton. Kevin Sutton is a great clinician. We rarely ever have, from a minority standpoint, guys that can teach the game. I know they can. They don't get that platform. How are we going to change that or pivot, per se, where you have an equality in clinicians or tacticians?
And when you say platform, do you mean at like the convention?
Yes.
Oh, well, did you sign up for our virtual convention this year?
I did.
Oh, well, see, you missed it. It was probably the most diverse convention we've ever had, and it's virtual, so that you didn't even have to show up. But there's still time. I mean, you can get on and register. What we did was we have most of our programming is up for 90 days past the convention. But I would say almost every single panel had either a person of color or a woman coach or some sort of diversity in our convention, and that was purposeful. So I'm sorry you missed that, and but I know you won't miss next year's.
That's right.
But if you want to be a part, I mean, you know, you guys know who I am. You guys, I don't know if you've met Nate Palmaday. I know JD said he was at the assistant coaches meeting we had today. Nate Palmaday ran that. Between me, Nate Palmaday, Troy Hilton, let us know if you want to be more involved. We're not turning anybody away. We'll find something for you.
Craig, Nate was a guest speaker of ours doing season 1. So many people here on the tribe know Nate Palmaday really well. Great question. Great question, JJ. Next question goes to Caleb Cooper.
What's up, Coach Robinson? Really appreciate you being here tonight. Just kind of wanted to see if you could dive into your why. What led you to this position? Was there something that you felt that you brought to the table that was different than before? Just kind of taking a deeper dive into your why and why you think you'll be successful in this next position that you'll.
Yeah, Kale, I appreciate that question. That's I haven't been asked that question since the interview, but what as I mentioned earlier, I was a member, so I sort of was sitting in your seat and kind of saw how the organization worked or didn't work, and Jim Haney has done a great job, but I thought I could do some good for both coaches and the game, and I just felt like it was a great opportunity to affect change. And when it opened up and I really took a closer look at what was going on with the NABC, because you have to remember, I was away from college basketball for the last 7 years. There was so many things that were going on, the changes that were happening in the game, that I thought that if you had some good leadership, that there would be some real opportunity to kind of change the way the game is administrated. Not necessarily played, because I love the way the game is played, but sort of change the way it's administrated, help coaches, help student athletes, and really sort of bring the organization into the 21st century. Because I can tell you, when I took it over, it was the same as it was when I joined back in 1999, and I'm sure for some of you older guys remember it from before. It was nearly the same as before then. So that was really what I was thinking, Caleb, and I just thought that there was a lot of room for improvement.
Really appreciate that, Mr. Robinson.
My pleasure.
Next question, Kyle Adams from Bigger Than the Ball.
Good evening, Coach Robinson. Appreciate you being on this evening. I want to first just salute you on the organization honoring Coach Thompson this year. I thought it was an amazing gesture to have the towels created and to have people represent Coach in that way. But I wanted to ask, does the NABC see itself utilizing Coach Thompson's autobiography at all? I know that the books were given out to teams that made the tournament. But are there any thoughts or any initiatives in place to really utilize that text to further advance the ecosystem? And it's an amazing text.
Yeah, and it is. No, Kyle, I appreciate the question. We had a book, sort of virtual book session for the convention, and included books by all authors who are members and coaches, and we included Coach Thompson's book in that. But I think there is some there's a way we can amplify that even more. We talked to the NCAA about, because I shouldn't say we talked to, they asked our opinion about what books if they were going to give out a book to the student athletes in the controlled environment. That was an easy answer, the perfect one to do. But yeah, I think we certainly can find a way to include Coach Thompson's book more prominently.
Thank you.
Next question, David Bentley.
Coach, how you doing? Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Coach Bentley. How's everything?
I'm doing well, Coach. Doing well. Hope you are.
I am doing just fine. Thank you.
Good. Good to see you as always. Wanted to ask you, obviously, for the younger coaches on here, obviously there's a lot of coaches at the NABC we've heard that have been in the NABC for years. What are some ways younger coaches can, one, be members, and, if they're maybe not making enough, but they still want to be a member, as far as the dues, and then obviously ways to be involved, not just sort of be a member and kind of be way in the back because we're younger?
Yeah, there are a host of ways to be involved, and let me back up though and talk about being a member and what one of the plans for us is to take another look at our membership dues going forward, right? And trying to figure out a way to make it more affordable for especially young coaches. So that's her. I hear you loud and clear on that. And I think to be involved, all you got to do is call us up and say you want to be involved, and we'll find something for you to do. I mean, we have a few committees. We have the assistant coaches committee, but I think even more importantly, we don't have enough younger voices just to sort of communicate with. So things like this, I think, are really important for me, so I can kind of hear what's out there. But we have talked about, and we're about to do an offsite, because when I joined, I stepped right into a pandemic, and we were off to the races. But we're about to do an offsite with our internally to kind of revisit how we do our committees. And the one thing that Nate and I have talked about is not only having an assistant coaches committee, but I think there's a need for there's so many jobs now that it's so different from when I was coaching. It was just the head coach and 3 assistant coaches. Now you have a bunch of other types of coaches, and those jobs are typically filled by younger people who aren't quite assistant coaches yet. We need to hear from those folks, like Dobos and head managers and video guys who all want to be coaches and could benefit from the education aspect of the NABC. So as we sort of build that stuff out, we'll certainly keep you in mind. But Coach Bentley, you've been around long enough. You should be running some of the panels at a convention, not listening to them.
I'm just starting the best.
I hear you.
Next question, but before I call on the guest for the next question, Craig, I want to tell you, you better get ready, because this next question is going to be, this person's a monster. Okay, Aisha Foy, please, before you ask your question, please tell us about the book that you just wrote.
Hey everybody, and Coach Sutton, thank you for having me up here. I did just write a book. It's called Success is My Major, start entitled Leave Unforgettable. And it is to help college students develop their purpose and maximize their potential, set themselves up for success when they leave college. And Michelle Obama's quote is actually like the first quote to open it up. So I'd love to send you a copy.
Please do.
And I did want to also say that I have her book, and also our coaches love her book. So you can tell her that more coaches love her book and stuff like that. But my question is, it's actually a 2-part question. So the first one is, what is the biggest gap in leadership between all the levels of coaching that you've been on, and even now? What's the biggest gap in leadership that you see? And the second part of that question is, how do you adjust to different leadership roles, and going from coaching players to coaching pro players, and now like coaching the coaches and things like that?
Okay, Kevin, you are absolutely right. Aisha came strong with that question. Jeez, thanks for that, Aisha. And really, my sister will be really happy when I tell her that I was on a Zoom with a room full of coaches, and we had a woman coach on here. That's going to make her day. But
she's the queen. She's the queen.
I would say that, boy, the biggest gap in leadership that I see is probably, it would probably be the lack of flexibility, right? The rigidity that we as coaches bring to leadership. We are a we're a different group, right? We're used to regimentation. We're used to a certain discipline. We're used to a cadence that we're comfortable with. But the world is moving different with these young people, right? You got to be flexible. You got to be a constant learner. If you know, as an educator, you have to be a forever learner, right? Because things are changing all the time. And which brings me to the next point is, you know, I think back to my first coaches. So you move past my parents, who my parents were my first coaches, but the first coaches I had, and I don't know about you folks, because you guys, some of you guys are young, a lot younger than I am, but my best coaches were also my best teachers. And now coaching is a profession in and of itself, where you could get somebody coaching you who's never taught anything or anybody. So what I tell people all the time is, if you can sort of develop your teaching chops, that's going to help you be successful and be a successful leader. And sort of the second part of your question was about leading players, now leading coaches.
Yeah. So how did you adjust changing?
Yeah, you know, it was interesting. Like I've run some organizations before, and you know, usually the CEO is, you're just running the organization, and you're setting processes in place and making sure you're hiring the right people. In this organization, where you're sort of in charge of a group of CEOs already, like they're already CEOs, and you guys are you folks are all sort of CEOs in training. There's a level of empathy that I have to have as a leader that I think helps me sort of put myself in your place, even though I haven't been there in a while. So and empathy is one of those words that I use all the time with leaders. Is sometimes we lead without having any empathy. You have to understand the people who you are leading, what they are going through, where they are coming from, to be able to lead them. The other part of it is, I think is like normal leadership stuff, being able to communicate, being a good listener, telling people the truth, no matter how hard it is for you to tell them or for them to hear it. As you guys know, with players, that's one of the hardest things, is being able to tell them the truth and have them hear the truth. It's the same thing when you're leading coaches. You know, when folks come up with ideas that I know are going to be a non-starter with the NCAA, I got to be able to say with them, hey, I don't know if that's going to work. We have to think of a better way or a better rationale or something like that. Being honest is part of leadership, but that's sort of the same whether it's players or coaches. But I think just understanding what the people who you are leading are going through helps you take it to another level. Oh, and the other thing, I knew there was something I was trying to think of. I go back to that word I was using for you guys, for you folks, for being coaches, is being a connector. Being a connector as a leader is, I think, kind of a different way of leading, but I think it's a way of the future. Aisha, I hope I answered your question.
You did. Thank you.
Next question, JB.
Coach, first of all, I do want to thank you for coming on today. You know, I know individuals, you know, all of us at all levels, we all are very busy right now. And it's been nice during the pandemic because we've had that opportunity to reconnect with, you know, what's most important. That's our families and the home life. But the question that I have for you, just to give you a quick background on myself, I put out a lot of educational resources for young coaches. I do that on Instagram, and I do it with a guy who hopped on the call tonight. His name's DJ Sackman, and he is a high level trainer and coach. And the question that I have for you is, you know, from the NABC, as a young coach, I wanted to go on and learn as much as possible. I love coming on calls like this and learning from all of these masterminds that are out there. And, you know, when I go through the NABC, I don't see very many educational resources for young coaches. And the good thing about the way that society is morphing, as you alluded to, that coaches have to be lifelong learners. The good thing is that young coaches such as myself, and, you know, Aisha and DJ, we can provide our worth through social media. So I guess my question for you is does the NABC have any plan for bridging that gap and bringing more educational resources to coaches, and not only coaches, but athletes as well, and you know, AAU, and getting involved with them? So this way we're growing the culture across the board, and it's not just, you know, the people who happen to hear about Living Trophies, because this resource is invaluable. You can't pay enough money to get into, you know, a community like this.
Yeah, well, Justin, that's a really good question, and it's as if you're in one of our strategy meetings, because the number one, I think what the number one thing that we need to add to our benefits is better education, right? I don't think we do enough of it. I think we do it once a year at the convention and have done it really well at the convention, but but it needs to be a year-round process. So in our strategic plan, that's right at the top. I would, and sort of 1B is, you know, our communications process has to be modernized. Like you said, social media is where most of you folks are getting your information. And, you know, we have a social media platform, but I don't think we're getting as much out of it as we can. So, you know, once we sort of start our planning and, or you know, start our strategic planning, you know, I think the next full-time person we're going to hire is going to be somebody who can sort of put together an educational curriculum for us that is sort of continuing, so that whenever there's a coach who needs to know something about some topic, he can go to our website, look for that topic, click on, and get a real live coach who's telling them how to be more empathetic, or be a connector, or how to run a practice, or how to you know, draw up plays, whatever. I think we are missing that, and you are spot on with that.
Oh, I really appreciate it. And, you know, any time that you want to chop it up, I'm all for it. And, you know, just a quick small plug for the coaches. Like, I'm really trying to expand that. So anybody that wants to get involved, please hit me up. I know you all are great masterminds, and, you know, anytime anybody needs any help or they want to chop it up with stuff like that, I'm all ears.
Thanks, Justin.
Well, Craig, Living Trophy Master Zoom classes, where is that? You know, you and I will talk, and we'll this is the platform right here. Okay, so you need some you know, to reach out to people and have a master coach. The Living Trophies Master Zoom class is it. All right,
man. Okay. Really appreciate that.
Next question, JT.
Coach Robinson, this is John Thompson at North Carolina Wesleyan. Appreciate you being on, and also appreciated you being on our Division III Congress meeting earlier today.
Oh, good to see you, John.
Absolutely. You've alluded a couple of times earlier to, if somebody wants to be involved and wants to do something, to let you know, so you can add me to that list. But my question is, you've talked about your desire to work on the relationship with the NCAA. Can you talk to us about what you feel the relationship is currently with USA Basketball, and where you'd like to see that go?
Yeah, that's a really good question, John. And I didn't realize until I worked in the NBA how important USA basketball is to the whole basketball ecosystem. And one of the first people I called when I got this job was Sean Ford, who runs basketball, and Jim Tooley, who runs USA basketball. Sean Ford runs men's basketball for USA basketball. And just so you know, one of our keynote speakers at one of our panels at the keynote panels at our convention this year was General Dempsey, who's the chairman of USA basketball. So, we're doing a huge outreach to the folks at USA basketball. I'm also working with Carol, the woman who runs USA basketball for the women's side. So we had a panel with General Dempsey, and Jay Wright and Dawn Staley, who both coach USA basketball in their spare time, and talked about sort of the importance of USA basketball. So that's very high on our priority list. And I think the relationship there is good and can get better. I hear you loud and clear that that's something that's really important to the college game and to the NABC.
Thank you.
Next question, Tracy Jones.
Coach Robinson, appreciate you joining. Had the opportunity, or you had the opportunity to speak with several of my scholar athletes when you were with the Bucks, when you came to the Sixers. And so I'm always gracious at how you lend yourself to others. I wanted to piggyback, and I've just been sitting in the back thinking about Lamar's question in regards to the benevolent fund, and hearing a lot about relationships, and just wanted to know if the NABC has considered, just going forward, considering that coaches have to use the benevolent fund based on the decisions of donors and outside influences. If the NABC is going to do some workshopping or just provide a little bit more protection around coaches during these transitions, and holding some of these universities accountable for too much donor influence in the decision-making process.
Well, there's not a whole lot we can do about individual schools' donors being involved. I think that I just think that what we can do is help our members understand that these jobs are volatile, right? These positions are, it's getting to be more and more like the NBA, where you get like 2.5, 3 years to make an impression on the program, or you're out. And I just think that as an industry, we have to look at preparing ourselves to have to move around a whole lot, and I just think that's just that's just the nature of the business. So if you're somebody who's young and you're getting in this business, you got to understand you're at some point in this whole scheme of things, you're going to get fired. And the best thing to do is to be prepared by having relationships, saving your money, prioritizing education. You just have to be very, very nimble. But if you have any suggestions for us, we're happy to kind of take them. But I just don't think that it's our job to sort of to regulate donors. That's the institution's job. And what I would like to spend my time doing is thinking of ways that our coaches can benefit while they're coaching in order to make themselves more valuable to the next place they go to.
All right, next question, Adam Gordon.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin, for putting this together. This is awesome.
Thank you.
And Craig, thank you for taking the time tonight. I was just curious, like as an organization, how do you guys determine like what to make statements about and what issues to get behind, and like, you know, specifically thinking about like the NIL situation, like the hashtag not NCAA property that was going around during the tournament, and like the ETSU deal. I know you can't make statements on everything, but like, what is the process behind like how you guys determine, you know, what to speak out on?
Yeah, usually like we have a committee on racial reconciliation, and that group takes a hard look at anything that's sort of social issue, revolves around social issues. And I can rely on them. I can call on them to say, hey, do we need to make a statement on things? You know, we try to make a statement, and also keeping in mind that all of our we represent all of our members, right? You know, some people get upset if I make a statement about one thing and don't make it about another. And it's sort of the process is we kind of send it through our committee on racial reconciliation, and then kind of vet it through the communications department and try and come up with something that is helpful and not just sort of saying something. A lot of times it's to amplify something that one of our members has said that we believe in, and sometimes it comes from our coaches themselves, and they've asked me to, hey, can you say something about this? I think it's really important. And then we sort of vet it through that process and decide whether or not we're going to make a statement or not. But what I will tell you is what we try and do on individual, like on the East Tennessee State, I didn't want to make a statement on that without reaching out to the coach. And we tried to reach out to the coach and didn't hear back. So I wasn't comfortable making a statement without having talked to the coach and find out the details. So there's a lot that I guess what I'm saying, there's a lot that goes into every single statement that we put out. A lot of thought.
For sure. Thank you.
Next question, Ron Ginyard.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate Coach Sutton. I appreciate you having me here. Coach Robinson, I appreciate you spending time and sharing your wisdom. And as a coach who has been out of coaching for 4 years, I just want to say it's such a joy to see so many names and faces that I have not seen in a really, really long time. And, you know, I think emotional intelligence, empathy, being a good listener, telling the truth, I think those skills are significantly important. And I think we hear those skills mentioned often, but I'm not convinced we hear often enough what those skills actually look like in practice. I think, you know, so often people say, be a good listener. And so I'm curious what you would say to this group. What do those skills actually look like?
Yeah, you know, what I will tell you is that that skill is actually what it means. Like you have to be present when your players or your staff or your spouse or your significant other is talking. You have to be present and can't be thinking about something else, which we are all guilty of doing as coaches. We're thinking about the next game or the next practice, and a player could be coming in to talk to you about something that is really important to them, but doesn't seem like it's important to you. And your mind is elsewhere. And we all know what that's like when we're on the receiving end of it, when we know somebody's not listening. So I always say being present when it comes to that. You know, empathy, that's just the ability to put yourself in the other person's shoes. You're yelling at a kid for missing a screen. Why did he miss that screen? Is it something technical? Is it something that is he a different kind of learner? Does he see things spatially? Does he see things linearly better? Is it better for him to watch it on film? All of those things have to be going through my mind and would go through my mind when I was coaching and when I'm leading people, right? Communication, we all are great communicators as coaches, but we like to communicate and motivate with yelling. Sometimes that's not the way, Sometimes you need the quiet scream, as I call it, as I should say, as my kids call it, when they get in trouble and they're around other people. They were like, "Uh-oh, you getting a quiet scream." So you got to be able to communicate in different ways. And then there are some players who don't communicate verbally at all or take in verbal cues real well. So you have to figure out, what is it that I have to do to get my point across to this guy? All of these things make up emotional intelligence, right? It's not just sort of the IQ. All right, this guy's good at math and this woman's good at science and this person's, it is feelings and being able to be more receptive to that, which old school coaches who are my age and older aren't used to doing that, because that is not how we learned. I don't know, Ronald, if that was helpful.
It was incredibly helpful. And I asked the question because I think it's important for people to hear the answer. I completely agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think it's important for those details to be explained. So thank you.
Hey, Craig, as we said before we got on the air, when everybody got on there, Ron was one of those smart guys that figured it out real early and pivoted in his career. He was an outstanding coach, but he's an even better administrator and educator at St. Stephen's St. Ag. And as you can see by the question that he asked, but he's real bright to figure out early in his career where his gifts and talents were needed the most.
Well, Kevin, I will say, this is a hard industry, and I've been through some industries, right? My corporate experience is totally in banking, investment banking, trading. It's eat what you kill, sales. There's nothing tougher than being a coach at this level. And part of the issue is not a problem, it's an issue, is that there are so few opportunities and there's so many people who are becoming qualified to do it. And there's not enough people at the top who are sort of moving on. Mm-hmm. It's gotten to be, like I said, it's gotten to be a profession, where a pretty lucrative profession. So people hang on for dear life. And the fact that you got this group here who are willing to do this to sort of better educate themselves and connect and to develop relationships for their own personal development. It speaks volumes. So my hat's off to you, all of you.
Real proud of this group. Our next question comes from John Sarge Sears.
Hey, Sarge, you're on mute.
Mute, Sarge.
Sarge's been waiting so long, he forgot.
So I'm the old head in the group. I'm 56, so this technology thing gets me. I was Garf's right-hand guy at 5-star. I'm the senior guy for Rob Kennedy, high school coach. 52 guys signed Division I. I'm going to speak less than Justin Brandt spoke, so I promise you that. Kevin Sutton's been one of my dearest friends for 25 years. The elephant in the room, Aisha, I just bought your book too, by the way, 2 weeks ago. What are we doing with the portal? I just did the numbers. There's 5,300 Division I players, 23% of them in the portal right now. I had 3 coaches tell me, or 4 coaches probably last week tell me, 2 in the American East, 1 in the Northeast Conference, I'm not recruiting high school seniors. Now, last year, I had 5 seniors sign Division I. We had the highest GPA in the freaking school, and all 5 of those guys were National Honor Society guys. So we did it the right way. But now I got guys, and they're like, I'm not recruiting high school seniors because I'm not wasting time.
Right.
There's got to be an answer, right?
Well,
23% is a problem.
So Sarge, I will, one of the few times I will plead the not the fifth, but I will plead ignorance on how we got here, because I inherited this, right? But here's here's what I will tell you. Here's what I will tell you, because this is the number one thing that our coaches talk about right now. And and all I can do is sit and listen and sort of help them understand that this train has left the station. So knowing that, what we have to do now is adjust our behavior. And what do we do? So everything you said is right. The portal's big. No one's going to recruit high school, or you're going to have everybody's going to drop down a notch, right? There will be some guys who get recruited out of high school, but the vast majority of them wouldn't. And I tell people all the time, if this came around when I was coaching, I would recruit transfers too. But what I will say is, we have to pivot and figure out how to deal with this while at the same time collecting data on why this was a mistake. And after year one, we gotta revisit it. After year two, if it doesn't change, we gotta revisit it, because what has happened here, and I am getting to know how this came about, and a lot of these changes have come about because of this Rice Commission thing, right? And what I'm trying to figure out, and I don't know if any of you folks know, was there a coach on the Rice Commission? Was there a coach or was there an assistant coach?
Probably not.
Right. And that's where I think there are going to be some really big unintended or unthought about, I wouldn't say unintended, unthought about consequences here. And the biggest one, in my short time here, the one thing that we don't want to, the one group we don't want to alienate are the prospective student athletes. And that's who's getting shafted in this, in my mind. The high school kids who are sort of, they're the start of the pipeline. That's when that sort of hits the psyche, I think we'll be able to kind of come to the table and renegotiate how this is done. Secondly, which I don't hear people talking about a lot, but is going to happen is, I don't know about you folks, but the portal seems to me like a game of musical chairs. Are you guys young enough to know what musical chairs are? You guys probably didn't play that. It's probably a mean game now, Sarge. You remember musical chairs where you had to run around and the music stops? Yeah, so you're closer to my age. The music stops and everybody sits down, and there's one person who can't sit down because you took a chair away. So what the portal is like musical chairs with like 300 chairs missing.
No. So 23% of the population of Division I athletes.
There's not going to be enough spots for all these people in the portal. So I know no one thought about that when they were talking about this. So, I feel your pain. I got here a little too late for that, but I'm happy to sort of let people vent so I can sort of start to collect data on why this was a huge mistake. And let's not forget too that if we don't fix this the proper way, what could potentially fall by the wayside are sports. And we're already having a Title IX issue, but
yes, and again,
men's basketball and football not going anywhere, right? So this could end up costing a sport. So I think when you start to think about all these things, I think we may have a chance to kind of have a discussion, but now's not the time because it's just happening now.
Correct. And again, it becomes generational. Like, that's my fear. It becomes generational. Like, like how many generations of seniors get overlooked because they're not in the top 150 in the country?
Well,
it's not your issue. And I've been a member for 35 years. So I appreciate, it wasn't just tickets and hotel rooms, or it was when I started 35 years ago. So again, I appreciate you, Coach. I really do. Like,
thanks, Sarge. I appreciate that.
It's a huge, it's a generational problem.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know if there's an answer. I don't know.
We got a couple more questions here. We want to be respectful of Coach Robinson's time. Next question is Sharif Hassan.
Thanks, Coach Sutton. Sharif Hassan, AD at Susquehanna University. Coach Robinson, good to see you. Appreciate you being here. Sarge, you stole my thunder. I wanted to ask that question, man. A lot of fire out here. I saw something on Twitter say adapt or die in regard to the portal. Coach Robinson, I'd love to hear your take. You talked about how the turnover of coaches and you think about the portal and how that might affect things. What hasn't came into play yet, but seems to be trending, is the NIL conversation, name, image, and likenesses. I'd love to hear your opinion on that and how you think it could impact coaching in general.
Wow, how it could impact coaching, that I'm not as sure, because the name, image, and likeness is really that's the one thing that's in play here that I think is going to be beneficial to the players if implemented the proper way. What I worry about is we allow our student athletes to earn money, and by the time they realize their eligibility is up or their pro career is not what it's going to be, that money has gone by the way of, Timberlands, sneakers, and jewelry, right? That's what I worry about. Because I think it's a great idea. I mean, I told you I was an investment banker. I'm all about capitalism and meritocracy. So if you're going to allow student athletes to make money off their likenesses, so be it. How that affects coaches in that, I don't know. Maybe if you don't help your student athletes make enough money, they will turn around and say they are transferring, and you get enough transfers, you get fired. I don't know. But I think that that's another one that's sort of that's here for the foreseeable future. So we have to figure out how to work within it. I know some coaches are bemoaning the fact that it's going to ruin their locker room, but I don't necessarily buy that right away. I'm more concerned about if we're going to allow them to earn money, let's show them, or let's help them keep it for when they need it. And that's going to be argued by people who say, well, they should get their money right when they earn it. And I'm like, yeah. And then they'll spend it right when they get it, because I've got 4 kids, and any of them at 18 or 19, if I gave them $10,000, they would have spent $10,000.
I'm a D3 administrator, and I'm excited about it for student athletes who can go to their hometown and use their image, their brand, to make a little money. But for the Power 5 type of athlete, and one of the coaches earlier asked about the boosters,
boosters aren't supposed to be able to pay
my
players.
Point. Right. It's my point.
So let's, like I said, 80% of us do it the right way. There'll be 20% who aren't, and they'll ruin it for all of us. But boosters shouldn't even be involved in this. And at the high major level, I just don't. I mean, in just the little research that I've done, you know who's going to make out on this is cheerleaders, gymnastics. It's going to be like regular society. You know, I think if there's a product that those folks can help sell, cool. It's not like, you know, I don't see Nike giving a whole lot of money to a one player. That's not how they operate. And I think there's a finite number of money too that's going to have to be spread out. I'm not sure it's going to be as big as everybody thinks it is.
Thank you, Coach.
Last question, Scott Doherty.
Hey, Coach. Thank you for talking with us tonight. Obviously, you've had success in college basketball and in the NBA. So I was wondering if you had any daily habits that you would suggest for us young guys that you've picked up over your career or that you've seen other successful guys pick up.
Well, Scott, first of all, weren't you just in the car?
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. See, I thought I saw you in your house, then I saw you in the car, and now you're back in the house. So the first thing I'll tell you is to notice stuff, right? But Coach Carrill said, "What do you see?" Right? And see as much as you can, right? Notice, look around, notice things, take note. It's one of those skills that is transferable to the game. But with regard to sort of professional things that I do on a daily basis, I will tell you, I got my screen on now, but this little book here, this is like a little book that I carry around. Now, I started doing this, and I told you my first job was as a trader, and I was a bond trader. And because of the liability and the amounts of money that you're trading, right? You're trading hundreds of millions of dollars a day. So if there's a mistake made, it's costly. So you are trained to write down every single thing you do in that day so that if something comes up missing, you can go back to your diary and say, okay, at 3 o'clock, I traded 300 million US Treasury bills to Allstate. And this is what I paid, and this is the timestamp, blah. You do that to protect yourself. I have been, since then, keeping a diary every day of what I do, and it just carried over to basketball so that I know what my practice was, what the outcomes were, what I need to work on the next day. And I religiously do this every day, except on the weekends. Unless I get a phone call that has to do with work, then I go put it in this notebook. It is with me all the time. So that's one thing I do. The second thing, and I only alluded to this earlier, so I'm glad, Scott, that you brought this up so I can highlight this again. I have a list of people that I call daily, weekly, monthly, right? That are integral to what I'm doing. And I make sure I call the daily people first thing in the morning. On the weekends, I give them a little slide, but I talk to them every day. The weekly people I talk to on Monday or Friday, and the monthly people I talk to on the 1st or the 15th. And I just keep that rolling. And then I evaluate that. You know, when I get to the end of a book, which is usually like a 4-month period, I go through and I say, all right, should I keep these people in the priority that they're in? So those are just a few things that I do on a regular basis. The other thing that I do that, just because it's a pet peeve of mine, I do not let my emails get full like my wife and have 100,000 emails unopened. That literally drives me crazy. So I try and personally respond to every email. And I know some of you on this call have probably emailed me or texted me, and you can call BS if I haven't gotten back to you in a timely fashion. I try my best to do that religiously. because it does a couple of things. It keeps my inbox empty. It also makes me follow up on things that people have asked me to do or ask, even if I have to say, no, I can't do that. I still feel like I've had a touch with a person where they heard back from Craig Robinson.
Hey Scott, in a nutshell, what Craig was just trying to say to you, all you young guys, I heard that term so many times tonight. You guys grew up with Apple computers. You know, us old guys, us old heads, we grew up with IBM, and IBM stands for It's Better Manual. That's why he's got a booklet. And then, and the last thing I'm gonna teach you, Scott, all right, is you can't Google experience. Okay, so when Rick Barnes asks you how far Chick-fil-A is, don't you go to Google. You better damn sight know how far Chick-fil-A is from that gymnasium. Okay, so there's 2 teaching points right there. You can't Google experience, and It's Better Manual. Write stuff down. Okay. Next question, and absolute last question, goes to Bill Phillips.
Craig,
thanks, Scott.
Sorry. I think I speak for everybody when I say thank you for taking your time out and spending and sharing with us. I just want to say that from day one, your leadership has been easy to follow with the NABC. So thank you for everything you're doing for us. My question is, what is one off the court skill that we could be doing a better job of teaching our players?
Oh, that's easy. That's an easy one. Boy, so you ended on an easy one. And before I give you the answer, let me just say to Kevin, the only reason that I don't do this book digitally on my phone, like in notes or something, is because I am deathly afraid that I will somehow erase something something important.
Absolutely.
And it's probably more likely that I lose this than erase anything. But I'm afraid of that. Bill, I will tell you when I was coaching and we would do sort of our financial literacy thing with our players and I tried talking about them saving money, because anytime they got any extra money, they spent it on sneakers or on Timberlands or on jewelry or something that, or on tattoos. The one thing I would tell them, look, before you do anything, pay yourself first. And this goes for anybody. It's not just players. This is people. My dad taught me, when you get paid, you pay yourself first. So you take whatever you're budgeted to be your savings, whether it's 10% or $10 or whatever it is, take that money out, put it in a savings account, do not touch account. That's what I would tell guys to tell their players on an off the basketball court thing. Pay yourself first and save your money, because there is nothing greater than compound interest. That is the best thing that's ever been invented. Compound interest, because every time, I mean, if you put money away and forget about it, even if you don't invest it, it's going to be worth way more than you put it in once you go get it.
All right. Well, another outstanding show. Craig, we here at the Living Trophy Master Zoom class are humbled, grateful, and appreciative that you took the time to pour into us tonight. We believe that the intentional investment we make in ourselves as leaders, educators, mentors, professionals will help us as we serve the people that we lead. So we want to thank you tonight coming on and being so authentic. I try to describe this tribe to you, in our text exchange, that it was safe and that they asked great questions. And once again, they didn't let me down. This was a great show tonight. Really enjoyed having you on. If you have any parting words that you'd like to share with us before we wrap up, just want to say, give you that platform and give you that opportunity, Craig.
Yeah, I really appreciate this, and you delivered on every promise you made. This was a terrific group, great questions, and I felt very comfortable being able to talk about whatever I wanted to talk about. So thank you for that. if I were gonna leave you with anything, is be confident and pass it on. All the stuff that you've learned and are learning, just keep passing it on. The young folks around this world are what's going to save this world, right? Because the young coaches, young players, young people, you guys are going to get this right. And I just am just humbled and honored to have been asked to be here with you guys tonight. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Our parting words for tonight are: no one can be a great leader unless they genuinely care about the success each person has on their team. So let us continue to be those ladles, okay, that go and pour and impact the student athletes' lives that we lead. Continue to be the educator that God has called us to be. Continue to step up and impact those lives, and let's continue to create living trophies. So I want to thank everybody for coming. Every Thursday night is a special night for me, but I couldn't do anything without all of you. So I'm extremely proud of what we're doing, the platform, and you know, the guest speakers that have come on here. Each and every one of them has been authentic and have shared with us and continue to make us better. So again, continue to go out there and pour into the student athletes that you lead. Be that ladle that fills their buckets up, not being a ladle that takes the water from their buckets. And let's continue to create living trophies. Craig Robinson, thank you again so much for coming on. Everyone be safe, be blessed, and we will see you guys next week. And Craig, you will always get an invite, you know, and love to have you whenever you can come back. All right.
Thanks, Kevin. Thank you all for being such good sports. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach Sutton. See you soon,
Absolutely,
bro.
Hall.
Be well. Love you, bro.
Love you too.
Oh, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay. Take care.
Hey,
Thanks,
Coach, you
Kevin.
got a second?
Appreciate you.
Yes.
All right, cool.